So hey, and welcome back to the channel. On today's video we're actually taking the booster out to tell you what I like about this bike and what I dislike about it before it goes back to Preston Motorcycles. So thanks again to Preston Motorcycles for the loan of this bike, much appreciated. It's given me a chance to find out what the Hayabusa is all about and also get a feel for this bike over the last few days, see what it's capable of. So yeah, really enjoyed my time on this beast of a bike. Is it still a hyperbike? Hell yes, but absolutely love the colour. Black, and I said gold, but it's actually like a copper colour. You can see the grills just in here, and also the rear end. Okay, so let's start the bike up, and then you can hear the engine. Okay, so let's hop back on this bike, take it on some twisties, and put it through its paces on the way home, and I'll give you my final thoughts. So to sum up the riding experience of this bike, it's just been an absolute pleasure to ride. At first, when I hopped on it on the first ride, I initially thought the seating position was really uncomfortable, with it being like a sport bike position. Now my views are still the same, although as you sort of gel into the bike, get to use it a little bit, you actually get yourself a little bit more comfy. I found that if I sit further back, I can get a real good grip on the tank, and that relieves pressure on my wrists. And also anything above sort of 50 miles an hour with the wind just holding you off a little bit, there's not much wrist ache. It is quite comfy. Yeah, I think if there's one thing, probably raise the bars another 10mm, lowered the pegs a little bit, because I don't think this is the type of bike where you're going to be out scratching around the back lanes. I don't see the reason for having foot pegs raised too high. I think they could have lowered those probably 10-20mm, and that would have just made the bike a lot more comfy. I must admit, when I came out into the garage this morning and I looked at this and the T100 Bonneville side by side, from a comfort perspective, I'd probably jump on the Bonneville over this any day. But that doesn't take away the whole experience and how you feel when you get on this bike, because the engine and just the power on this bike is blisteringly quick. Would I want to own one of these bikes? Hell yes. It's that type of experience when you ride this. I would love to own one, but would it be a bike that I would take out every day? Probably not. Now luckily we've still got half a tank of fuel in this beauty, so plenty to get home, and I don't have to scrat around between petrol station to petrol station to find out if there's any fuel left. Absolutely mental quick. What a rush. The more you ride this thing, the more you actually like it. So I would imagine an hour's test ride on this thing would not give you the opinion you needed to be able to make the decision whether you would purchase something like this. Now I did knock the mirrors when I first got on this bike as being a little bit vibey. They are a little bit, but not too much. But the view out of both of them is pretty fantastic, so can't fault that at all. So in power mode 1, traction control 1, mode A, I can feel a slight increase in throttle response, but I think in power 2 it has the same actual power. It's not reduced the power at all from the engine, just made the throttle more responsive. But it doesn't matter which gear you're in. This thing has bags of torque, great at low speeds, but it is a hyperbike still. It's still got that warp speed that the booster always did. The brakes on this bike are fantastic, and it's just what the bike needed from the old generation. You've got the Brembo Stylema calipers, and you can't fault them really, even though it's a linked brake system between the front and the rear. Single finger braking with loads of stopping power. Absolute gem to ride. Now we've got some dry roads, just tipping it into the corners. Really is lovely. You just point the bike where you want it to go, and it goes. So here's the thing, so sport bikes I used to love, okay, and it was only in the probably the last 10 years they seem to have got smaller, and when I mean smaller as in they're really dinky now, and if you're a tall rider like me at 6'2", you look a bit silly on them and your legs are all pinned up and bent up. Now don't get me wrong, my legs are, you know, pretty stretched up on this bike, but there's quite a lean forward. You've got quite a long bike here, and it's more suited towards the taller rider, I think. I do miss the old sport bike days where they were really substantial bikes. That cockpit alone does it for me. I think all bikes should look like that. That's in fact my favourite cockpit out of any bike on the road today. You can keep all your TFT 5, 7 inch, 10 inch dashes on the modern bikes. Analog gauges, simplicity. Yes, we've got a TFT in the middle. It's small and it gives the information for the electronics, which is all it needs to do. A proper fuel gauge, proper temperature gauge. What more could you want? So the other thing I would love on this bike is if it had self-cancelling indicators. I think most of the Triumphs, except the Bonneville range, have got it on, so why not this? If it's got all the other electronic suite and aids, then they could have factored in that. And I know it's something you can add as an aftermarket product these days, but yeah, it would have been nice. So other than that, I think the bike's pretty much got everything really that I'd want on a bike. I'm not a lover of heated grips, so that doesn't bother me that it doesn't have them as standard. I think if you wanted to have them, they're not expensive anyway. Okay, so that's pretty much me done on the 2021 Hayabusa. Again, a big thanks to Preston Motorcycles, and if you would like a test ride on some of their bikes, just give them a call. Number's in the top right hand corner of the screen just now. So on the left hand side of the screen you'll also see some of the other manufacturer of bikes that they actually sell, and also they've got a showroom full of second-hand bikes. So if you're in Lancashire, head over and check those guys out. They're lovely guys to deal with, and again, huge thanks and appreciation for loaning me the 2021 Hayabusa. So if you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button. All helps the channel, and fully appreciated, guys, and thank you very much. And I'll catch you on another video shortly, which will be the 2021 Triumph Speed Triple RS. Take care, guys. Cheers.